In this video, we are going to talk about Retribution Paladins. Let's start by talking about how to gear your Paladin. Let's take a look at stats and reforging for Retribution Paladins. The most important stat by far for Retribution Paladins is strength. Following that are reaching the hit cap rating of either 6% for heroics or 8% for raids, followed by reaching the expertise cap of 26. The next most important stat is mastery, followed by crit, followed by haste. Let's move on to reforging. The first thing you will want to do is reach the hit rating cap of 6% for heroics or 8% for raids. Next, reach the expertise cap of 26. Once you reach both of these caps, focus on maximizing your mastery stat. Reforge haste first and crit second into mastery. Let's talk about gemming your Retribution Paladin. You can see on the screen right now a list of relevant gems that you can use to socket your gear. I did some research on this and I found that a rule of thumb is to socket your gear with pure the plus 40 strength, the red gem. There are a couple of exceptions. For example, if your socket bonus is plus 20 strength, that would be an exception, and also plus 30 strength. Other than that, you just want to go with straight strength. Let's move on to glyphs. You should be able to see on the screen right now a list of the recommended major and prime glyphs. But there's something I want to point out in our glyphs discussion. These are the main three that are recommended from multiple sources. Glyph of Seal of Truth, Glyph of Exorcism, and Glyph of Templar's Verdict. Those are the big three that you want. The major glyphs are not, there are a lot of them you can switch out. They're not real critical. I happen to go with these three: Consecration, Ascetic Crusader, and Holy Wrath. The Glyph of Righteousness and the Glyph of Truth are actually worth mentioning, and we'll explain later when we discuss our AoE and single target rotations why these two glyphs are actually important. Actually, it's primarily the AoE rotation. We'll talk about that later. Let's move on to our talents discussion for Retribution Paladins. Let's take a look at the talent build that I went with. This is the fairly commonly accepted talent build of 7 in Holy, 2 in Protection, and 32 in Retribution. As with the other talent discussions and the other tutorial videos, we're not going to talk about every single talent in great detail. Instead, we'll just focus on the important ones. Let's start by taking a look at Pursuit of Justice. This particular talent has a couple of properties. One is, if you ever get hit by an immobilizing effect like a stun or a fear, it rewards you with a free holy power charge. But the property that I really like about Pursuit of Justice is the increased movement speed. I personally just love moving faster. That's why I go with 2 points here. It's a nice talent. Divine Storm is an absolutely essential Retribution talent. What it is, it does a couple of things. It's an AoE attack that does damage to all targets within range, and if you strike 4 or more targets, it'll generate a holy power charge. Also, it will heal up to 3 nearby party members for up to 25% of the damage caused. Long Arm of the Law is a really cool talent. What it does is anytime you cast Judgment, it'll increase your movement speed for 4 seconds. What this allows you to do is cast Judgment from, for example, way back here, and then just get into melee range very quickly, as you can see there. It's a nice talent to have. The Art of War is a pretty awesome talent. The way it works is your auto attacks will periodically proc this Art of War buff that makes your next exorcism cast free and cause an additional 100% damage. This is central to your single target and AoE rotations, which we'll discuss later. Communion is another essential Retribution talent. It increases your raids damage by 3% and it increases your damage by 5%. It also causes the replenishment effect. It's a buff that restores a little bit of mana over time. Seals of Command is a really awesome talent also. It increases the damage done by your Seal of Righteousness, Seal of Truth, and Seal of Justice by 7%. But the real benefit from this talent is that the effect that it has on your Seal of Righteousness. It causes Seal of Righteousness now to hit all enemy targets within melee range. We'll talk about the consequences of this awesome talent later in our discussion of the AoE DPS rotation. Sanctified Wrath is another absolutely essential Retribution talent. It really empowers your Hammer of Wrath by increasing the critical strike chance by 60%, which is pretty amazing. And it also reduces the cooldown of Avenging Wrath. Now, it also has a property of allowing you to use Hammer of Wrath while Avenging Wrath is up. And this will affect your rotations. This is something that we'll discuss later in the rotation section too. Repentance is a pretty cool crowd control ability. It's conceptually like the same thing as a Rogue's Blind. It just allows you to CC one target. Any damage you do, obviously, will break the effect. Divine Purpose fits into your rotations by allowing you to use Templar's Verdict as if it were consuming 3 holy power charges. That's really the main use that you'll have for Divine Purpose. Whenever it procs, we'll talk about this later, but whenever it procs, you'll be using Templar's Verdict. I didn't spend any talent points on Acts of Sacrifice, but it is worth mentioning because it is actually a really cool talent. What it does is it reduces the cooldown of your Hand of Freedom, and it also causes your cleanse to remove one movement impairing effect if you cast it on yourself. The research I did indicates that this will even cleanse a hamstring effect on you, which could be useful in a raiding situation. And the last talent that we want to talk about is Zealotry. This is arguably the most powerful Retribution talent. The way it works is anytime you activate Zealotry, it causes any Crusader Strike to generate 3 holy power charges. So you can continually use Crusader Strike followed by Templar's Verdict, another Crusader Strike, Templar's Verdict, and so on. We'll talk about this in more detail in the rotation section.